So far, the authentication and ID verification products that we covered are based on two models, the centralized identity model and the federated identity model. The centralized identity model is when a service provider requires you to create an account, for example, with your email and a password, and controls this account and the information linked to it, from your name to your password, your credit card information, or other types of info. The federated identity model is when a single account can be used to log into different services. Think of your Facebook account that you can use to register to other services thanks to the Facebook Connect button. While these two models are the most widely used, three major problems are inherent to them. The first problem is about security and the fact that with the centralized model, plenty of different companies store sensitive information about you. And if they get hacked, you can be in a lot of trouble if it's a password that you use across other services or if it's your credit card number, for example. The more your identity-related information is stored in different places you don't control, the more chances they will leak. The second problem is linked to privacy. Whether it's with federated or centralized identity, the service providers own your data. And very often, these service providers will use your data for other reasons, from marketing to targeted ads or just to improve their own product. The problem is that you rarely have your word to say about it. So in terms of privacy, it's really not in the favor of the users. The last problem is about user experience. As we saw in the video about authentication services, an email is linked on average to 150 online accounts. And obviously, it's a pain to have to log in and log out everywhere. This UX issue is partly solved by the federated identity model that precisely enables you to connect to different services with the same account. But having a central and unique online identity where you log in to whatever services you want while being the owner of your information would be much more convenient. And it's precisely the promise of a new identity model that has accelerated the past couple of years, self-sovereign identity. The aim of this part is not to go deep into crypto or blockchain territories, but rather to give a broad overview of what is happening in terms of identity management and how it could play out with the different blocks that we described previously. First of all, when I speak about Web3, I speak about decentralized web built on top of crypto and blockchain tech. One of the many promises of Web3 is to allow users to manage and control their identity themselves. No more third parties such as Facebook or Google. Unlike centralized and federated identity, Web3 Auth is based on what we call self-sovereign identity, which works through the combination of three parties: the identity owner, the credential issuer, and the credential verifier. The identity owner is the user, basically you and me. Our identity is a set of different clusters of information coming from different providers. For example, your national government is the one that issues your national ID card containing your name, date of birth, and nationality. Another cluster of information is about your education, with all the diplomas and certifications delivered by the schools and universities that you attended. Another cluster of personal information about you can be your financial status. And in this case, the entity handling it might be your bank. In the self-sovereign model, these clusters of information are called credentials. And the entity delivering them are the credential issuers. Now, you'll probably ask me where the innovation is, because so far, nothing new under the sun. Well, in our case, it's the use of crypto and blockchain tech to orchestrate how these different parties interact together. Without diving into too much details, as the identity owner, you own the information defining your identity. What the issuers are doing is to write proof about your credentials on blockchains that anyone can check when you claim something. They don't write personal information on the blockchains, but just certifications of certain claims, a bit like stamps of approval. For example, let's say that in order to register to an online betting service, I need to prove that I'm older than 18 years old. With the traditional model, I need to upload a picture of my ID card directly to this betting app, which can be dangerous. With the self-sovereign identity model, I don't need to send them a scan of my ID card. They will just check on the blockchain if my claim of being over 18 years old was validated by the government who wrote a proof on the blockchain. If it's the case, they will just let me use their app without them accessing my date of birth or my address and the other sensitive information displayed on my ID card. The advantages are manifold. First, I don't spread my personal information around, and as a consequence, there's less risk that it gets stolen somewhere else. Second, the credential verifier, in our case, the betting service that I want to subscribe to, doesn't even need to contact the government to get a proof. They just check the official stamps that was written on the blockchain. Third, as a user, I can register to many services without creating new accounts. I just use my personal wallets to log in and log out to the various services I want to use. Of course, all of this is also subject to a lot of debates. And plenty of people say that this self-sovereign identity model is not a silver bullet. It still has security and privacy flaws. But I'm not here to debate that and to say that one model is better than the other, but rather to say that the traditional centralized and federated identity models were the two most used models, but a third model is currently emerging, and that in the years to come, it will probably impact the broader online identity space. The first trend that we see in the current environment is the emergence of an identity stack similar to what we saw with authentication and ID verification, but based on crypto and blockchain tech. We also divided this stack into 3 layers with wallet applications on top, followed by middleware, APIs/developer tools, and finally the identity protocols at the bottom. Since the user is the owner of his own identity information in the self-sovereign model, we decided to put at the top of the stack the wallet applications that enable people to store their credentials and access keys. These are the central products through which people will log in and identify themselves to access apps and services. MetaMask and Phantom are good examples of wallet pure players, but plenty of other services can provide their own wallets where you can store the credential specific to certain services. In the API/developer tools layer, you'll find the tools that businesses can use in order to manage all the operations around wallet and credential issuance as well as verification. For instance, if you're a business and that you want to provide to your users Web3 Auth functionalities without having to code everything from scratch, you can use products such as Tycoon, which has an API to create wallets, as well as to issue and verify credentials easily. In the protocol layer, you'll find the blockchain protocols that these developer tools use, whether they are specialized, such as Sovereign, which is an open source, decentralized, public identity network metasystem to create, manage, and control self-sovereign digital identity, or Unlock Protocol, which is a PAM for the blockchain era. Just as a side note here, identity products built on top of blockchain tech are not new. The first generation of them were launched a couple of years ago, but the majority of them have shut down because they never got traction. What we see emerging now is a more structured and more mature tech stack, but a big question is whether this time real adoption will follow. At the moment, the majority of the services that implements Web3 Auth are blockchain native apps, aka dApps. Currently, with your MetaMask wallet, you are mostly able to access NFTs or crypto services. You cannot yet log into your Facebook or Slack account with the crypto wallet. But the current narrative in the industry is that this line will blur. And one day, you will be able to connect to any services, not only with your email, aka centralized identity, or with your Gmail or Facebook account, aka federated identity, but also soon with a crypto wallet as well. Rather than being limited to dApps only, Web3 Auth will be available on any type of services. That being said, we are still early and it's still unknown whether this crossover will really happen and how fast the adoption will be. In conclusion, our aim was not to go deep into how self-sovereign identity works, nor to provide an exhaustive view of the different players in that space. Our aim was more to share the big picture of what is happening, and for sure, Web3 Auth is a trend that you cannot avoid if you are interested in the broader online identity software space.